Okay, so we're going to talk today about wisdom, intelligence, and smarts. Uh, so um, this is a very important topic because we all want to be as smart as we can. We want to have the highest level of intelligence possible, and we want to be wise. But let's define these so we understand. I make no apologies, by the way, that my Catholic faith forms a lot of my thinking, but I do want to be very clear about something. It does not contradict science at all. In fact, it is science that fortifies my Catholic faith, and I'll show you that. If you can show me a science that contradicts my faith, I would believe the science. Okay, so and also I would find, by the way, that that wouldn't be a contradiction of the faith because God is who designed all of science, so it all would do it illuminated in the first place. But let's break this down. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. That's a very real thing, but I want to give you a practical way of looking at this. There are a lot of people who accomplish a lot in life. They are highly successful, make billions of dollars, build massive companies, have all sorts of power, all sorts of fame, whatever it might be, but they're miserable because they don't have a purpose. They don't know why. They don't understand things. So what is wisdom as it relates to the fear of the Lord? Now, you could look at it and just say, well, because God is omnipotent and omnipresent and he's the Alpha and the Omega, and, frankly speaking, if you exist because he thinks of you. And if he ceased to think of you for a nanosecond, you would be gone, eviscerated. Those would be reasons to know that God could just come in and wipe out the world with one single fell swoop, right? But that's not really what fear of the Lord is about. Fear of the Lord becoming the beginning of wisdom is to order all things toward God. That's really the ultimate plan in this. So when you're building a business, what are you doing? You're glorifying God. You're doing good things with the work that you've accomplished. You're being magnificent with your money by helping build great institutions or to donate to certain people. With any of the things that you mass, your power, your authority, you use it to help people who are a little bit less powerful, to give power to that voice that might not be powerful. So we order all things toward God. Now, we don't just do those things as an end by themselves, but we do them as an end. Well, actually, I should say that there's some strong reality that truly loving somebody is to do those things for their own sake and nothing else. But when we look at the big picture, though, ultimately speaking, it is for you and them to be in heaven. That's why we do all the things that we do, so we can hear, well done, good and faithful servant. And that's what wisdom is. Now, you might say that doesn't really have a practical application to things like intelligence or smarts, but I'll show you that it does in a very significant way. So let's take IQ next, intelligence. Now, there are a lot of people who argue whether or not intelligence it can be moved or not. And some say that it's fixed, and others say that it can be enhanced. Whether or not you use those terms or not, pretty much everybody in the spectrum of psychology and any of the sciences related to intelligence would agree with what I'm about to say, that intelligence has a nature to it, kind of like our physical attributes. So some people are born to be 5'5", some people 6'5". If you're malnourished, you'll never reach 5'5". If you're properly nourished, you will. Same thing with 6'5". And same with a certain amount of strength, right? There are certain people like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Boom, he's buff, he's strong. If he never lifted weights at all, he'd be dramatically thinner, but he'd still be bigger than most people would be. And so he enhances it. He works hard at it to maximize that sort of thing. So Dwayne Johnson in the non-working out form would be like Dwayne Johnson. If his max IQ is 150, it would be sitting at 125. I don't know his IQ. He seems to be a smart guy. But the point is that his IQ would be much lower in the same way that his muscles wouldn't be as developed. That most people agree with. So it's a certain amount of fixed level to it, but we enhance it as life goes by learning, studying, and developing things, including patterns, by the way, which we'll get into in a moment. So how do intellect and wisdom relate? Einstein's a great example of this. He developed the theory of relativity. Why? Because he's a massive, massive IQ, super smart. But he noticed something in it. He noticed something about this because, of course, relativity has to do with, the development of the universe, and it goes all the way back to what he recognized as an origin. In other words, a beginning, something from nothing. And that was offensive to him because that, and they didn't use the term at the time, came shortly after that, that would mean a big bang, and a big bang would mean a big banger, and that big banger has to be God. So he actually admitted and intentionally fudged the data a little bit so that it didn't go all the way to that level. But then a Catholic priest, not a short time after that, not a long time, quite a bit short time after that, Father, I won't get this right, Lemaitre or something like that. I think it was Belgium. He furthered the math, and he confronted Einstein personally. And he said, hey, your math is wrong. It points to this. And Einstein said, and I don't remember the exact thing, but he said something like, I'm offended by your idea or thought. And he meant by what it means, if it's true. And he was going to hold on to that for a while. But he had other colleagues that said, listen, you know what? This Hubble guy and these telescopes that they're looking through, they're proving that this is true. And we are either going to get on the bandwagon or we're going to be discredited as scientists. And he actually apologized for this. He said he was wrong. I think it was an American national media that he did it. Anyway, later in life, at the end of his life, he said that the biggest mistake that he ever made was that. And what did he do? He took his personal bias and he applied it to science to hide from the truth. This is ultimately the key. To have wisdom, you have to have a passionate love affair for what is true. Wisdom, according to Socrates or Aristotle, Plato, these greats, along with St. Thomas Aquinas, was also called prudence. It's like a practical knowledge. It's the ability to desire what is good, know what is real, and then act upon it. Or they would use things like command and judgment and command would be more of the Aristotelian views, or even Thomistic ways of looking at this. But when you look at this and you say, okay, I need to know what is, I have to desire what's good, I have to know what's real, and then I have to act upon it. This is the passionate love affair for what is true. And we know Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. There are small t's and there are big T's, or there's one big T. There are small t's, 2 + 2 is 4, okay? That's a truth, which leads you to the truth, Jesus Christ. If you believe 2 + 2 is 7 on Tuesdays, if you have blonde hair and you like pepperoni in your pizzas, well, you don't have a passionate love affair for what is true. You have a bias, strange one, by the way. So it's very important for us to understand that to have wisdom, we need to have fear of the Lord. Why do we have fear of the Lord? Well, because we have a fear of being separated from him in eternity. And we want to be with him in eternity, which means we need to order all of our behaviors here on earth toward God. And that, by the way, precludes us to want to develop our intellect. So we do hear, well done, good and faithful servant. God would say, listen, I gave you all of the intellectual nutrition to maximize your IQ. We don't always have the physical nutrition to do that for our bodies. So why didn't you do it? You had the opportunity to do it and to learn more. And that's very important for us to be able to do that, to like dive in and understand more. So what does this lead us to? It leads us to being smart. And while wisdom would be what I just described, and intelligence would be what I described, smart, I'm just going to give my own definition. It's a combination of both wisdom and intelligence. And it is highlighted or made manifest in the ability to recognize patterns. Why do I say that? Well, music is patterns. It's basically, you can count to 4, you can make great music and you can hear it, understand it, and move to it. Art in other sense, like literally things that are subjective more in nature, like music and art, yet they have patterns, right? If you're going to have a great character in a play or in a movie, they're going to have dimension to them. There's going to be an arc in the play or that movie that recognize it. It's going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if we don't do that for theatrical reasons, sometimes it's off a little bit. So that's important. But then in science, of course, we saw this just in a general sense of science. When you look at things like physics in architecture, it's very simple. If you don't build it this way, it'll fall. It has to follow certain principles. And in biology, we saw it basically, but as biology drove its way down past the cell into things at a micro nano level, we start to recognize that there are patterns within patterns within patterns. There's virtual cities within parts of cells that we didn't even know existed at all. Okay? This is also true in chemistry. This is also true in physics. And so the more we recognize these patterns, the more we understand that there is a programmer. In fact, that's actually the word that scientists use now. We know that with the genome, right? That there are programs that are actually there. They're literally like computer programs at the deepest, most cellular level, right? They go way into micro technologies. And so it's important for us to understand that the only way that things can be programmed is by a programmer. And this is offensive to certain people. So they try to use these random chance things, which are just nonsensical, by the way. They are a current elimination or a current example replaying of what Einstein did with the theory of relativity early on. And by the way, I'm not here to debate the Big Bang or not. I know there are certain people that say that it's valid or not valid or whatever it might be. The point would be that Einstein, in his own admission, neglected to put information in there that would reveal a further truth. And that's what happens today when people say there's no need for a programmer to program a program. It's just literally impossible. And by the way, they all have the same thing in common. They're atheists. Anybody who believes that there isn't design to the order of the universe or to who we are specifically, when they see that there is specifically programs inside it, is a person who doesn't believe in God. So you would ask yourself, well, do they not believe in God because they don't think there was a programmer? Or is it they're not believing God that says there's no programmer? I think that's what it is. Most of them have been spouting their mouths off to a lot of people about this idea, and it would take an incredible amount of humility to say, I was wrong because of bias. So they lack wisdom and actually lack smarts, even though they have high intellect. So here's my encouragement to you. Be wise, be intelligent, apply smartness, recognize patterns, and you can go slay dragons and conquer the world.